Welcome to Biggest Spoilars, the destination for exclusive spoilers, latest updates.
General Hospital reveals Mayor Laura Collins' fright because she's got a veritably dead Professor Hank Dalton in her box. And effects are about to take a horrible turn for the recently re-elected mayor. So, will a murder blameworthiness against Laura turn over the election results? We're going to talk about why Jen Sidwell is setting Laura up to take the fall for Dalton's murder and what comes next. General Hospital Laura loses it on Dalton all right, so we lately saw Laura go off on Professor Dalton for framing her grandson Rocco Falsaroni for apparently trashing Dalton's lab at PCU. Now poor Rocco is sitting in juvie, alarmed and facing serious felony charges. Of course, Laura knows Rocco is innocent and that Dalton is a slimeball. When he provoked Laura at the polling station on election day, if you flash back, she screamed at Dalton. Laura called him a fabricator and promised that he would get down with this. Also Laura indeed slighted Dalton in the face. He didn't touch her. And she got physical with him. I mean, it was noble. And Chooser sounded to like that she was standing up for her grandson. But unfortunately, Laura slighting him was assault. And she made pitfalls against Dalton doubly in public. And now all of a unforeseen, his cadaver is in her box on General Hospital. Behind the murder Sidwell's motives and Britt's terrifying secret on GH of course, we all know that Sidwell is the one who put a pellet through his heart, killing Dalton in cold blood right there in his living room because he put the exploration that he, Britt Westbourne, Sidwell, and the Riddle Master are working on at threat. Dalton's bad temper got them on the radar of the PCPD and the WSB. The good thing is they haven't tied Dalton, in one way to Britt and to Sidwell. So, yes, Britt Westbourne is the one and only substantiation to Sidwell rub out Dalton, but she's alarmed, so she isn't going to talk. It's not just that Sidwell told her, "This is how I deal with people who betray me." He also reminded Britt she relies on him and the Riddle Master for her Huntington's drug. So, she's veritably spooked of what horrible effects would be to her health without that phenomenon medicine. Laura Collins in the hot seat. Will she be arrested for murder? I do suspect we're going to see Laura in the hot seat because she just intimately hovered Dalton. By the end of this week, she's in her auto, alarmed, freaking out that there's a cadaver in there with her spare tire. And Laura screams again on Friday when Nathan West approaches her auto. I guess she doesn't see him there. The pitfalls were bad enough if Dalton had turned up dead anywhere. I suppose Laura would have been a suspect, but with Dalton's body shoved in the box of her auto, there seems little mistrustfulness the PCPD will have to probe and conceivably arrest Laura coming week. Of course, we only have 3 occurrences coming week because of Thanksgiving. So, Laura may not be in bind for a whole another week, but it seems likely it's going to be. At the same time that it seems likely she'll be arrested, it also seems relatively doubtful that the mayor would shoot Dalton, but she did make pitfalls and she pledged to cover Rocco at all costs. And of course, Laura's a tough cookie and it wouldn't be the first time she handled a gun. It wouldn't be the first time she killed notoriety. So, she's not an angel. Sidwell's master planned 2 catcalls, 1 stone scheme on General Hospital, but there's also the fact that Laura was just re-elected as mayor and she beat creepy Ezra Boyle. And we know she has a lot to lose. Another reason that Laura wouldn't be reckless and just go around shooting some Joe no matter what he did to Rocco. Still, if the substantiation points to Laura, that's what matters. And of course, Sidwell knows that. That's why he told Britt that now dead Dalton could still be useful to their cause because Laura's been getting in the way of what Sidwell wants, which is to get Sonny Corinthos out of the way and to take control of the peers. And Laura refused prestigious sphere. Also they did Measure C. And that didn't go the way Sidwell wanted. But if he can get Laura transferred to captivity, also it seems like Ezra would presumably be mayor. And we know he'd do exactly what Sidwell told him to do because he's loose. Plus, we know that Sidwell has the murder armament since he used it. So, he might have planted that with Dalton's cadaver in Laura's auto or perhaps in her office or her home. I mean, this is surely kind of a 2 catcalls, 1 gravestone thing for Sidwell. He got relief of Dalton who was a problem. And he may also get Laura out of the way. And she's also a problem because she'd always be Sunny's supporter at Megacity Hall, intimidation and control Sidwell's third victim plus, in a kind of a 3 catcalls, 1 gravestone thing, Sidwell fulfilled a third thing by killing Dalton. He spooked the teetotal crap out of Britt because she has toned down the cheek and she's going to work harder in the lab to get the results from her father Caesar Faison's exploration. Indeed, a badass like Britt is now hysterical for her life because she knows Sidwell won't vacillate to kill her. She was formerly spooked once she saw that he'd brought Pascal to Port Charles because the Joe strapped a lemon to her ankle in Croatia. And you know, if Pascal had his way, Britt would formerly be dead in pieces. So, she's alarmed and rightfully so. And Sidwell is evil, but he's also extremely smart and he seems to always be 2 way ahead. So, I'm not at each surprised that he'd take this occasion to get relief of Dalton, who's a serious liability. And also get Laura out of the way. The investigation begins. Will the PCPD uncover the verity on GH? At the end of this week, Nathan is talking to Laura, who's distraught and blubbing. And he's at her auto window at the side of the road. So, either Laura calls 911 to report she set up a body in her box, or Nathan just happens to be driving by and sees her pulled over. Either way, the bobbies are there and it should be easy to see that Laura is being framed. But the PCPD doesn't do a great job at actually working crimes, first of all. And they really have no other suspects. They generally always go for the easy bone. Like with the Willow Tate thing and Drew Kane Quartermain firing. Nethermost line, Rocco is in juvie and the other kiddies that conspired to do the break heft, Danny Morgan, Charlotte Cassadine, Gio Palmieri, and Emma Scorpio Drake, all have defenses for when Dalton was killed. So, indeed though it seems doubtful that Laura would kill Dalton, if that's where the substantiation points, you know, plus with Laura assaulting Dalton and making pitfalls, we could see Dante Falconeri forced to arrest Laura, which would be ironic since Dante was just appointed acting police manager by Isaac's mother-in-law, the mayor. Political fallout agony for Mayor Collins on General Hospital. So, DA Justine Turner obviously would charge Laura with murder if the substantiation warrants it. And also that means for her that beating Ezra in the election might be the last good thing to be to Laura for a while. However, I would anticipate Ezra and Drew to get to work capsizing the election so that Ezra can take her place as mayor, which would put everything falling impeccably into place for Sidwell and starting a real agony for poor Laura, if she's facing arrest and jail time. And of course, this is bad news for Sunny, too. It would be kind of funny if Laura has to step down as mayor because of Dalton's murder and also Ezra is appointed mayor, but also he's forced to step down because Harrison Chase is about to figure out that Jacinda Bracken, the ex-prostitute, was doing sexy stuff with Ezra for plutocrat the night that Drew was shot and Jacinda prevaricated to give Michael Corinthos in justification. So, we could have 2 disgraced mayors in the coming weeks. We'll see what happens. Effects aren't looking good for Laura and she could lose everything. Obviously, the mayor's musketeers and family will stand by her. Lulu Spencer, Rocco, Sunny, Jordan Ashford, Curtis Ashford, all of them. And she's got lots of people in her corner, but none of that will count if Sidwell did a really good job framing her for Dalton's death. The jubilant high of a hard-fought electoral victory is a fleeting emotion for Port Charles Mayor Laura Collins. In a shocking turn of events that catapults from political drama to a personal horror story, the newly re-elected mayor makes a grisly discovery that threatens to dismantle her life, career, and freedom. The source of her terror? The very dead body of Professor Hank Dalton, stuffed unceremoniously into the trunk of her car. This is not a simple murder mystery, it is the opening gambit in a chilling, multi-layered conspiracy designed to silence a liability, control a witness, and eliminate a powerful political obstacle. The stage is set for a devastating chain of events that will test the bonds of family, the integrity of the Port Charles Police Department, and the very foundation of the city's government. From public confrontation to a deadly frame-up, the making of a prime suspect. The path to this nightmare was paved very publicly. The recent conflict between Laura Collins and Professor Dalton was rooted in a deeply personal place, her family. Dalton had framed Laura's grandson, Rocco Falconeri, for the vandalism of his PCU lab, leading to the terrified young boy being incarcerated in a juvenile detention center and facing severe felony charges. Laura, knowing Rocco's innocence and Dalton's corrupt nature, was a grandmother lioness poised to strike. The tension reached its boiling point at the polling station on election day. In a moment of raw, unfiltered maternal fury, Laura publicly confronted Dalton. She denounced him as a liar, vowed he would not escape justice for his actions, and in a cathartic but legally precarious act, she slapped him across the face. For the voters witnessing the exchange, it was a glorious display of a leader fiercely defending her own, a moment that may have even bolstered her support. However, through a legal lens, that slap constituted assault. Coupled with her explicit verbal threats, made in front of numerous witnesses, Laura had inadvertently constructed a powerful motive for anyone looking to connect her to the professor's demise. While Laura's actions were driven by passion and a desire for justice, they created a perfect storm of circumstantial evidence. If Dalton were to turn up dead under any circumstances, Laura's name would naturally surface in the investigation. But the discovery of his body in the trunk of her car transforms suspicion into what appears to be an open and shut case. It moves the narrative from a possible connection to a seemingly deliberate act of framing, yet one that the PCPD, with its often checkered history of solving complex crimes, may be all too ready to accept at face value. The true architect of chaos, Jens Sidwell's 2 birds, 1 stone masterstroke. The audience, however, holds the privileged knowledge of the true killer, the cold and calculating Jens Sidwell. Sidwell did not merely kill Dalton, he executed him with chilling precision in his own living room, a bullet to the heart serving as the ultimate penalty for betrayal. Dalton's fatal flaw was his volatile temper and reckless actions, which had drawn the unwanted attention of both the PCPD and the international WSB to the shadowy research project Sidwell, Britt Westbourne, and their mysterious boss are conducting. With Dalton eliminated as a liability, Sidwell saw a golden opportunity to solve another pressing problem, Mayor Laura Collins. Sidwell's ambitions, particularly his desire to seize control of the Port Charles Piers and neutralize Sunny Corinthos, have been repeatedly thwarted by Laura's ethical leadership. She refused to use eminent domain for his benefit, and subsequent political measures, like the failed Measure C, were blocked under her administration. Sidwell recognized that a compliant mayor was essential to his plans, and Laura was anything but. His scheme is a classic, if diabolical, 2 birds, 1 stone strategy. By planting Dalton's body in Laura's car, he simultaneously permanently silences a loose end. Dalton's erratic behavior made him a threat to the entire operation. His death ensures his silence forever. Neutralizes a political adversary. Framing Laura for the murder could lead to her arrest, disgrace, and imprisonment. If she is forced to resign or is removed from office, her defeated opponent, the corrupt and easily manipulated Ezra Boyle, would likely assume the mayoralty. Ezra would become a puppet mayor, rubber-stamping Sidwell's every demand and finally clearing the path to control the city's ports and undermine Sunny. Sidwell's plan is not born of mere opportunism but of strategic genius. He even remarked to Britt that the deceased Dalton could still be useful, demonstrating his ability to see value even in a corpse. He possesses the murder weapon, and it is a terrifying likelihood that he has planted it, or will plant it, among Laura's belongings, perhaps in her office, home, or vehicle, creating an insurmountable mountain of physical evidence against her. A third, silent victim, the psychological enslavement of Britt Westbourne. Sidwell's master plan, in a brutal extension, achieves a 3 birds, 1 stone outcome. The third victim of Dalton's murder is not physically harmed but is psychologically terrorized, Dr. Britt Westbourne. Britt was the sole witness to the execution. She saw Sidwell's cold-blooded efficiency firsthand, hearing his ominous declaration that this is how he deals with those who betray him. This act of violence was as much a message for her as it was a punishment for Dalton. Sidwell expertly exploits Britt's most vulnerable point, her health. She relies on him and their mystery boss for the experimental medication that staves off the symptoms of Huntington's disease. His reminder of this dependency was a not-so-subtle threat. Her access to this life-altering treatment is contingent upon her loyalty and silence. The murder has effectively extinguished her trademark sass and defiance. The once badass doctor is now cowed, fully aware that Sidwell would not hesitate to end her life if she became a problem. This fear is compounded by the prior trauma of being targeted by Pascal, who had strapped a bomb to her ankle. Sidwell's reintroduction of Pascal into her life was a preliminary warning. Dalton's murder is the final, terrifying lesson. Britt is now a prisoner, compelled to work harder in the lab to unlock the secrets of her father, Caesar Faison's research, her spirit broken by the omnipresent threat of death. The investigation unfolds, a perfect storm for the PCPD. The immediate aftermath of Laura's horrific discovery places her in an unbearably vulnerable position. As the week concludes, she is found by the roadside, distraught and sobbing in her car, the corpse mere feet away from her. The arrival of Nathan West at her window sets the official investigation into motion. Whether Laura calls for help or Nathan stumbles upon the scene, the result is the same. The police are summoned, and the mayor becomes the center of a homicide investigation. On the surface, the case against Laura appears compelling to a fault. The PCPD, however, is an institution known for gravitating toward the most straightforward solution, often overlooking deeper conspiracies. As seen in past cases like the shooting of Drew Kane or the troubles surrounding Willow Tate, the path of least resistance is frequently pursued. With Laura's very public motive, defending Rocco, her documented assault on the victim, and the damning physical evidence of the body in her possession, she presents the easy suspect. Compounding this is a lack of viable alternative suspects. Rocco is in juvie, and the other teenagers involved in the lab incident, Danny Morgan, Charlotte Cassadine, Gio Palmieri, and Emma Scorpio Drake, all have alibis for the time of the murder. The investigation, likely led by a conflicted Dante Falconeri, who was just appointed acting police commissioner by Laura herself, will be fraught with personal and professional tension. Dante, a man of integrity, would be forced to follow the evidence, even if it points directly to his ex-mother-in-law and political patron. The irony of the new commissioner having to arrest the mayor who appointed him would be a dramatic twist, highlighting the inescapable nature of the frame-up. Political fallout, the unraveling of a legacy. The potential arrest of Mayor Laura Collins would trigger a political earthquake in Port Charles. District Attorney Justine Turner, bound by her duty, would have little choice but to pursue murder charges if the evidence continues to stack up against Laura. This legal battle would have immediate and severe political consequences. Her victory over Ezra Boyle would be rendered null and void as she is forced to step down to focus on her defense. This scenario is precisely what Sidwell is counting on. With Laura sidelined, the path would be clear for Ezra Boyle to assume power. As mayor, Ezra would be a mere puppet, dismantling Laura's legacy and granting Sidwell everything he has been denied. This would not only be a personal and professional catastrophe for Laura but also a significant blow to her ally, Sonny Corinthos, who would lose his most powerful and trusted friend in city government. However, the political landscape of Port Charles is notoriously unstable. In a potential twist of poetic justice, Ezra's own ascension could be short-lived. Harrison Chase is hot on the trail of a separate scandal involving Ezra and Jacinda Bracken, concerning the night Drew Kane was shot. If it is revealed that Jacinda provided a false alibi for Michael Corinthos after engaging in a transactional relationship with Ezra, it could lead to a second mayoral disgrace in a matter of weeks, leaving the city's leadership in a state of unprecedented chaos. A network of support in a sea of uncertainty. Throughout this ordeal, Laura will not be without allies. Her family, her daughter Lulu, her grandson Rocco, will stand firmly by her side. Her longtime friends and political supporters, including Sonny, Police Commissioner Jordan Ashford, and Curtis Ashford, will undoubtedly rally to her defense, using their resources and influence to uncover the truth. This network of support is Laura's greatest strength, a testament to the bonds she has forged over a lifetime in Port Charles. Yet, in the face of a frame-up as meticulously orchestrated as Sidwell's, goodwill and personal belief in her innocence may not be enough. Sidwell is a villain who is always 2 steps ahead, a master strategist who has covered his tracks with cold efficiency. The question is not whether Laura has people in her corner, but whether they can outmaneuver a foe who has anticipated their every move. The coming days in Port Charles promise a high-stakes battle for truth and power. Laura Collins faces the fight of her life, not just for her freedom, but for her family and the very soul of the city she leads. As the investigation begins, the citizens are left to wonder, can the light of truth pierce the shadow of a perfectly laid frame, or will a cold-hearted conspirator succeed in burying a mayor's legacy alongside his own victim?